All right. It's 4 minutes after 7. One, two, three. No, Alex is here. Today is April 24th. No? 24th until midnight. We are here for our irregularly scheduled council meeting. We ask everybody to please find a seat, sit down so we can start conducting our regularly scheduled meeting and discuss the business of the city of North Miami, city on the move. Mr. Clerk, please do roll call.
Mayor Joseph.
Here.
Councilman Galvin. Vice Mayor Keys. Councilman Bienerme.
Yes.
And Councilman Dezume. Mayor, we have a quorum to proceed.
Thank you very much. We'll proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance conducted by our Sergeant Crystal Thompson from the NYPD. No, not Miami PD.
Please place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And everyone can remain standing while we ask Rabbi Larry Tochinsky.
Very good.
From Beth Moshe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This month, we celebrate, or we remember, I should say, Holocaust Remembrance Month. Unfortunately, it's a commemoration of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of others who were killed or slaughtered during World War II under the Nazis. In our country, and I hope it changes, we celebrate one day as Father's Day, one day as Mother's Day, and another day as Thanksgiving, and another day as Memorial Day. These are things we should remember every day. Every day should be Father's Day, every day should be Mother's Day. Every day should be Thanksgiving. We say 6 million, and it's just a number. I was just crazily looked it up. There were 1.5 million little children that were killed. To show what that means, if you took the American Airlines Arena, where the Heat play, and it was filled with just children, and 7 days a week, for 3 full months, if every day you took the entire stadium filled with children, 7 days a week, for 3 full months, that would be 1.5 million. We say these numbers, and 6 million, 1.5 million, and unfortunately, they seem just like numbers, but they're not. They're individuals, they're people, their lives. More than 6 million, because the families that would have come from them. And we mourn them, and we remember them, and hopefully we say never again. It should never happen to anyone, because unfortunately today it comes for one person, and then the next day it could come for someone else. God of all creation, we thank you for this day and for the many blessings we have received. We thank you for the people with whom we have been in contact, our family, friends, and strangers. We thank you for the ability to use our minds to discern your will and work to create a strong and healthy community. We thank you for our community and all who serve it, for those who teach, and for those who every day risk their lives to protect us, for those who clean and those who repair, for those who work in parks and those who work on roads, for those who plan and for those who make those plans happen, for those who heal and for those who counsel, for those who govern and for those who elect. We thank you for our community. We pray in our community for the hungry, for the unemployed and the uninsured. We pray for all our community who are mentally or physically ill. We pray for all in our community who live in violence. And for these, and for all the burdens of our larger community, Lord, hear our prayers. As this meeting begins this evening, I pray for each and every person here. Grant all of us the wisdom and the courage to know and to do what is right, good, and true. May we speak out when it's time to speak out, and listen patiently and respectfully when it's time to listen. May we always be guided by the spirit of community, justice, and love. And may you, God, King of the universe, continue to bless us and our families with bountiful blessings. May God bless these United States of America. And may we all say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Rabbi. We all may be seated as we go to line item number 4, where we consider any addition, deletions, or any amendment to the agenda before we proceed, Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. Through the mayor, I would like to withdraw tab E.
E as in Easter.
E as in Easter.
That's it?
That is it, sir.
Okay, it's your attorney, so may we proceed and consider this agenda set for discussion?
Yes, Mayor, the agenda is set. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. And I think we have one special presentation before we go to the rest of the agenda. The special presentation by the Chief Juriga, was going to recognize our Officer of the Month for March 2018.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Our Officer of the Month is Officer Guido Andolo. I'd like to ask him to come forward. Officer Andolo is a 19-year veteran of our police department, and he's a member of our Marine Patrol unit. And this case shows that our officers are out there protecting our residents, not just from criminals, but in all situations, and they're the calm amidst the chaos. In this particular case, while Officer Andolo was stopping by one of the local marinas during his shift, he saw a man in distress, struggling to catch his breath. Several people were striking the individual on his back, attempting to dislodge something that was stuck in his throat. These attempts were unsuccessful, and the man was turning blue. Knowing that the man's life was in danger, Officer Andolo raced over to him and reverted back to his training. He got behind the individual, a big fella, and started lifting him up, doing the Heimlich maneuver. Officer Andolo had to do it several times while the man was still struggling to breathe. And while holding the man's entire body weight up, he was finally able to dislodge the food that was stuck in his throat, and the food propelled out of his mouth. The man was able to then start breathing on his own. Officer Andolo comforted him and reassured him that he was going to be okay. The man broke down in tears, imagine that, and started thanking Officer Andolo for saving his life. The man contacted me later that day after he had returned home to his family, and again was in tears, just saying what a great job Officer Andolo had done and in saving the man's life. So I want to please join me. We train our officers for these type of situations, but it's his cool-headedness and his quick thinking that enabled him to get over there and save this man. So again, please join me in congratulating Officer Andolo as our Officer of the Month.
Certificate of recognition presented to Officer. What is it? No, Dagoberto. Dagoberto Andoyo. On behalf of the city of North Miami, we recognize you for your heroic act as a North Miami police officer and for your good thinking, life-saving efforts, and dedication to the residents of the city of North Miami. I know this is just a piece of paper, but our heart actually goes to you. Thank you very much.
Just want to thank everybody for their support and the staff and administration for our support. I wasn't as cool as collected as he said. At the time, afterwards, it's almost had a heart attack myself. But thank you all for your support. Thank you.
Okay, the next report is actually an annual audit report, the CAFA report, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report by our auditors, and I believe the Director of Finance will be the one introducing them, Mr. Miguel Acheves. No, what's your last?
Augustine.
Miguel Augustine, thank you very much. Miguel Acheves was a good ranchero singer back in the days, Mexican.
I will serenade us another time.
Yeah.
All right, so these are auditors, RSM US.
Mike.
Our auditors are RSM. Mr. Donovan McGinley is a partner with the firm, and Mr. Neil Harris is a senior partner. They'll be presenting the CAFR, or the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
Thank you, Miguel. Mr. Mayor, council members, good afternoon. I'm Donovan McGinley for the record. I'm here with my colleague, Neil Harris. We're here to present, in real brevity, the results of the audit that was conducted for the city's annual financial statements for the year ended September 30th, 2017. Some of the reports that you should have in your hand is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. We codify that as a CAFR. We also have issued in draft form that you have what we call the Single Audit Report, which is a report on the federal grants, and also a management letter that we summarize any findings that we noted during the audit. Just real brief, the first thing I want to bring to your attention is on page 1 through page 3, which is our actual report. The report that we issued in conjunction with our audit, that's correct, yep, is what we call in the profession an unmodified report, which is a clean opinion. And it reflects the conclusion of the results of our audit. Similar to last year, it's a clean opinion, as I mentioned before. And it starts again on, I see some of you going to the page, starts on page 1 and ends on page 3 of the document. The next part of the financial statement I want to bring your attention to is on page 35 of the document. And just real briefly, within this document, similar with previous years, you have 2 sets of financial statements. One that's on the full accrual that we talked about, that has all the assets, all the liabilities of the city. And this statement reflects that on page 35. Inclusive on that page, more notably, is the fact that the city's pension liability is reflected on those statements. The totality of the pension approximates about $40 million between the governmental and the enterprise funds. And just want to highlight that for the record. This is a 3rd year, if I'm not mistaken, that the city is now reflecting the impact of that on the financial statements. Prior to that, those were not included on the financial statements, and this is the 3rd year through the adoption of a accounting pronouncement that now mandates the recording of the liability. The next page, I think I mentioned page 35. It actually was 25. My apologies for the record. The next page is on page 27, which highlights the general fund, which is the main operating fund of the financial statements. And that reflects the balance sheet for the general fund, which is more or less the operating fund.
Something they could show so that the audience could see what they're talking about. Is there any visual to it, to the presentation? So no.
No, we don't have a visual.
Okay.
It is online, yes.
They should have put. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. So on page 27 of the general fund, it shows the balance sheet, which mirrors the budgetary basis in terms of how the city budgets its operating activities and for the year. On page 27 reflects the balance sheet of the general fund, and again, I want to point your attention to the fact that there is a fund balance deficit that's on approximately $5 million. That's in the general fund. For the year, the general fund, the city's general fund reflected what we would call, quote unquote, a net loss of approximately $4.5 million, which means that we had expenditures greater than revenue. And again, this may be a planned event, so I would not be too alarmed if this is part of the budgetary process or the planned activity that the city had enacted prior to the start of the fiscal year. In the enterprise funds, it starts on page 31. There you have a net position, again, similar to what we call in the commercial world, net equity, or the equity section of a financial statement, of approximately $76.6 million positive, which if I can editorialize for a while, that's a good number. You had net income of about $1.1 million for those enterprise activities for the city for the year ended September 30th, 2017. And those are some of the key highlights. I mean, obviously the document is as it's titled, very comprehensive, and the notes, along with statistical activities and information, follows those statements. So those are the highlights. Yes, Mr. Manager.
If you will, bless you, through the vice mayor, could you also elaborate a little on the compliance section?
Yes, so we're going to get to the single audit side now. Thank you. So the next audit I mentioned before in terms of our responsibility under our arrangement was to do an audit of the federal programs of the city. In the current year, the city had mainly federal program, just the federal programs actually audited. The monies that the city received from the state was not required to undergo an audit based on the requirements. So the single audit report, which should also be in your packet in draft form, reflects our audit and the results of that audit. In our audit of the federal programs, we noted one finding, or as we call it, an exception or finding to our testing, and that's also cited in the report. The findings are cataloged in a way that it's by year, so it says 2017-01. It summarizes the condition of the finding, and more importantly, it reflects management's response to the finding in terms of how they're going to address the finding going forward. We did not consider this finding to be significant, but somewhat as a compliance nature, that's an exception, and we're obligated to report that as part of our audit and to report this to this body. In addition to the finding that's reflected in that report, we had another what we call a significant deficiency in our results of the audit. That significant deficiency is coined, if I'm not mistaken, as IC 2017-02. And it summarizes a financial reporting aspect that the the city should undergo more diligently. That's an error that they noted through a breakdown of a control and a systems error, which caused a significant amount in terms of a financial error. So the report reflects what the finding is, our recommendation as to how to address this, and again, they have articulated in that document their response in terms of how they're going to deal with this going forward. The other report that we've issued is what we call a management letter. The management letter has in it certain prescribed requirements as dictated by the Auditor General of the State of Florida. In that document, we have also noted one finding as required to be reported in that document. Again, the finding is not one that we consider to be significant or material. However, it's something that's worthy to be addressed there. We've also included in that document findings from the prior year that are not fully addressed, that are still in effect, for lack of a better word, and those have been carried forward in that document. Inclusive in your package, we've also have what we call certain key financial trend indicators, about 5 or 6 of these things that we considered significant or worthy to be looked at in terms of certain key financial metrics. And in the interest of brevity, we will not go through each of those, but I think it's worth for you to look, at least peruse, and if you have questions in the future, we can come in and certainly address those. Just as a wrap up, again, as part of our audit, we had the full cooperation of management. We had full access to all the records. We had no disagreements with management in the application of any accounting function or any audit procedures that we performed. And again, we had full cooperation. And one thing I want to at least highlight for the record that this is brought to our attention, that this is the first year that the city has, in the past 10 years, have been able to complete the package prior to the March 31st deadline that they have adopted. So that's kudos. If you remember clearly last year, I think I was standing here in June at some point making this presentation, and here we are in March. So this is a good at least step forward. With that, I'll open it for any questions or commentary from anyone.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions. I know we went over some of these during our briefing, but my main concern and really issue is, well, one of the issue that's really alarming to me, but you said we shouldn't be too alarmed, is the net loss, the balance sheet, the 4.8, the almost $5 million. I was trying to figure out, and I think I asked Miguel, why was it so high? It's obviously we're doing something that we haven't been doing in previous year, because we were at a negative almost $5 million. So is it due to high staffing? What caused it? Is it something that offset that? Because we need to address that and make sure we don't have this type of report next fiscal year. Can somebody kind of answer that question for me? That's the first question.
You can go ahead and answer. I mean, the auditor will, or the manager will?
Well,
I was going to address part of the issue. If you recall last year, well, a couple things. We did have a budget to utilize some of our reserve as part of the actual annual budget last operating for that particular year. The other thing that has a lingering effect when you look at
How much was it?
It was 6 billion.
6 million?
6 billion.
6 million. Okay.
6 million.
What do you mean you use 6 million reserve?
Right, of prior year's revenues that were
Carried
available
over.
for.
That will roll forward.
Right.
I don't understand. That's
Let's wait for the
No.
explanation, then we can go forward. If we keep stopping him after each word, then you won't
The
have time to explain it.
more significant impact that we had that's a lingering impact, and you see it in the balance sheet on 27 in the general fund. We had to reclassify $16 million of revenue that had been previously reported as revenue in the current period. That revenue was the result of the prepayment of rent from the Solomia project in the amount of about $20 million. The city had reported that as revenue 6 years ago as a one-time number. Last year we had to reverse that. So our fund balance reflects this as a result, this number, and it was actually an issue that the auditors and I had significant conversation about, because we're amortizing that number over 100 years. Even though from the cash position, the money is there, it's in the bank, and I would submit that our bank accounts are healthy. So that's one of the reasons why you have that.
Okay, that just made me more confused. Let me try to. Okay, so if we had, I'm just trying to get, how did we get to $5 million deficit if we were using some of the, so were these funds were already allocated, they already used in previous year, and we account for them this year, or?
Rollover dollars
Uh-huh.
from a prior period that were being utilized in the current period.
Mm-hmm.
So a surplus, if you will.
So
was
that's,
from a prior period. That in conjunction with on the balance sheet, in conjunction with the accounting entry that we posted.
the mic.
Mike.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. That in conjunction with the accounting entry resulted in our net fund balance on the balance sheet being what it is. I don't.
If I may use, if I may use the exact same term that was used by the auditor along with the director of finance during my briefing with them, is that back in 2012, there was a transaction where the lease was actually, that was the second.
It was a
right?
first payment. It was a
prepayment. The prepayment, the first payment that was done back in 2012,
right.
And that money was that funding was supposed to be considered funding that would be amortized over the entire life of the lease. But instead, it was pulled into our budget, right?
Yes, it was improperly. Well,
Yeah.
it was improperly recorded in 2012 as revenue. It should have been recorded as prepaid rent
revenue.
and amortized over a period of time.
Which they explained to me during our briefing, but my question was, that amount was not, that surplus was not 5 or something million, so there's still be a gap in having some deficit. So maybe perhaps if you didn't have that in there, you wouldn't have a $5 million deficit, but you still have a deficit. So my question was,
You would have a utilization of fund balance in the current year, which was a budgeted item.
Mr. Manager, you're the money person. We're not. Explain it to us in people's term. I'm trying. Yeah.
So when you appropriated the budget
Mhm.
last year, in that number was the use of a certain amount of our surplus funds.
No, when you say surplus, that means that we had more. Now we looking at a report that's a deficit. So, okay, never mind.
Well, let me try and help you through the mayor.
Yes.
So, in the year 2012, you had revenue or monies that came in that, from an accounting standpoint, you cannot recognize as revenue.
Got it.
However, you had the discretion of spending that money. So the spend is still reflective of an expenditure. So the analogy I use is the fact that, let's say you got to pay advance, but you can't really recognize the pay advance because you haven't earned it yet, but you can spend the
Got
money,
it.
and the spend has resulted in an expenditure that there's no revenue to match against.
Okay.
So then you end up with an offset.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Manager, would we have this type of loss next year? Or are we still on the current budget, the 2018 budget? Is it the same deal that we had last year and next year? Because I got to move on.
We're still realizing the effect of the change in accounting. However, from an operating standpoint, current year revenues, current match the current year expenditures. Right now, we're on budget, so we should be fine.
Okay, thank you. Next question on page 21. Several of these items, department, the budgetary, highlight the final numbers. A lot of these, page 21, Councilman. A lot of these numbers were a little bit, they caught my attention. Intergovernmental, and I won't go into the actual details, or the department's building and zoning. Well, I guess I have to call that one. Community, CPND. So those are the only few that I could come out that's over $500,000 that went over. Is that normal, or is that is CPND building and zoning? I think I could understand when we insource that department. So maybe that kind of says why is that high, but the other two.
When we're doing the budgetary comparison, I'd have to get you a detailed report to be able to tell you what exactly each one is, and if you want, I can get that for you by
Please do,
tomorrow.
Sir. Yes, sir.
To tell you what were the expenditures that created the deficit, if you will, against the budget.
Okay. All right. My last question, I know we had with the auditor I had some concerns regarding the fact that you guys did not, because it was not mandated by the state to audit, any grants that's under 700,000 or 750.
You got that right, correct?
Okay.
Yep.
So my concern was to them, Mr. Manager, what if there is something that's wrong with a grant that's less than 500 within that time frame? So how do we catch it? Is there a check and balance? The fact that they did not quote it, that we would catch it?
Well, what I would tell you is in the framework of audit, they're analyzing our risk factors, our internal controls. The fact that they gave us an unqualified opinion generally speaks to the fact that overall our internal controls are in place such that the numbers that you get are accurate.
No.
Well, no, that's the technical answer.
Okay.
However, if you would like for us to add the additional scope of work, we can add that to the audit scope.
I would feel better, the fact that we have a grant from the state, because we just had a state audit, that we are looking at that, although it's not required by them, but we know that we are looking at it as a city just to make sure that we are spending their fund properly. That would make me feel much better. Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilman, did you have?
Yes. And Mr. City Manager, let's talk about the deficit, the $5 million deficit. Last year, in the previous year, 16-17, did we had a deficit, a budget deficit? Not based on that. 2012, money coming in and it was
I don't
spent.
have that the comparable here for that year. Is Terry here?
Yes, he's here. I saw.
I'd have to pull the financials for that fiscal
He's
year.
here.
Do we have an operating deficit in, you said 2012?
No, 16.
16. Wait, that was the fund balance. We had expenditures in excess of revenues in the general fund by 1.9 million.
That's when you had 1.9 budget deficit last year.
Yes.
And you use the reserve money to balance the budget.
That would be, well, yes, correct.
That's what you did.
Yeah.
Not with the $16 million that was
No, that had
coming.
that had nothing to do with the
to
16.
do with that.
That had nothing to do with 16.
Okay. Out of that $5 million, right? Without that decision in 2012, how much would it be the deficit without that?
Oh, in 2012?
You said the reason why we have a $5 million, that reflect the $5 million deficit now, is because of that decision in 2012.
You're
But-
mixing the balance sheet with the income statement. I said
Okay.
on the balance sheet, the reason why we have a net fund balance, a
Mhm.
negative fund balance,
Okay.
is associated with the accounting entry.
Okay. That's mean we had a budget deficit of $1.9 million last year. That
Yeah.
we were not aware of that.
You were presented the financial statements back in June, so. Yeah, that's just a general fund.
But I remember asking question, did we use any reserve money or unallocated fund to balance the budget? The answer was no. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Any other question
Please.
for the auditors?
Thank you. I'm sorry I could not meet with you last week.
Yep.
I have done a brief review of this. I'm hoping that we can meet again after I can.
Certainly.
Being handed the, I couldn't have asked questions anyway, so I'd like to address some questions. I asked, Deputy Manager Sori for a few answers today. I just see that we've gone over budget in a lot of departments. Councilman Desumi, like building and zoning is actually a surplus. It's not, they're over. I think they had extra revenue. But we're over budget in a lot of categories, yet I see in non-departmental, we're way under by like 11 million. So what I'm getting a brief explanation is we've maybe not classified things properly. I mean, I don't know. So these are things I want to go over line by line, get answers. Don't want to go over in detail numbers this evening, but
Okay.
those are questions. Our budget to me is way out of whack, and we need to get back onto budget. And there was also about a $200,000 off in the CDBG funds for expenditures. And that was another question, and I don't have to have an answer this evening, but I'm looking at that.
Okay.
That was in your report. It said the expenditures exceeded by 0.2 million. That was on page, there's a few pages. It's in your narrative. Page 16, I believe.
16?
16?
It's page 16, community development, the block grant. And it says negative unassigned fund balance due to expenditures. So I just want to get an answer for that, and would like
Okay.
to go ahead and meet and get some further answers. I'll write down questions and get them to you before the meeting.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there any way we can have, just before, we can have another presentation under the meeting about, to go over the report, like in the next council again? Because you have, okay.
Well,
Well,
the
just
the
asking
items
now.
the items that you're bringing up, we will be able to sufficiently. But if you want the auditors back, I don't see an issue.
Mr. Mayor, through you to the city attorney, city manager. How much is in the city's reserve account right now?
You mean what is our cash balance right now?
Cash is about 53 million.
Okay.
I see
So
reserve.
if we suffer a catastrophic your reserves are set aside for catastrophic situations. There was a point, this is the old man speaking in the room, there was a point when we were down to $500,000. How much do we have in our reserves right now?
Well, in terms of reserves, we're talking about budget reserves, correct?
Yeah.
Well,
It's
the-
restricted, I believe.
Well, the budget reserves that you have as a council allocated, I believe that is in 5 million, if I remember correctly.
How much?
5 million?
That sounds
There's a restricted minimum amount, but we've been putting more and more into the reserves over the years.
So the answer to the number at the end of this year, if we did not have the accounting entry, is approximately around $11 million.
Okay, that's what I'm expecting to hear. So, I agree that we probably have been. I understand what's happening with the accounting changeover and why numbers are not adding up exactly like they did last time. I agree that we probably aren't, you know, we're maybe getting spending a little bit more than we might need to, but at the same time, the reserves are healthy, and that's what this is about. And I have to, my hat's off to the organization for getting this done. Yes, we're having this done tonight in April. Years before it was in June. There were years where the city management did not present a CAFR to the city at all. And one of the things the state audit called out was that we were not even having this report being done. So there were points where years would go by, and multiple years would go by, and this report was not being made. So I truly appreciate the fact that we're a heck of a lot more on our game than we used to. So.
And kudos to management for that in terms of getting that organized.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, go.
To the mayor and Mr. Manager, Councilman Galvin said our financial presentation of situation with you said $11 million when we know it's $5 million in our reserve.
No. So
Where got that? Explain.
You want me to explain how I got to the calculation?
Okay, yeah.
That number? So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking what our net fund balance is on our balance sheet. That's on report 27. And you see that number is unassigned a negative 4.9 million. Had we not had to do that accounting entry, which is what we talked about, which is the reclassification of approximately $16 million worth of revenue, that $16 million would be in our fund balance. So
it would be about 11.
So that's how we get to the 11.
But right now, how much do we have without
Right now,
that?
from an accounting
we
standpoint,
know that money is
right.
doesn't
The money's
exist.
there. Per GASB and GAAP, it is 4.9. That's a negative 4.9 million.
How much is in our reserve?
That's the number I just gave you. Negative 4.9 million in the general fund. Oh, I'm sorry. I gave you the fund balance.
Oh, fund balance.
I keep mixing the numbers. So
the issue is that we cannot present the amount that's committed by the council because we have the negative fund balance. Because it doesn't make sense to show an amount that's committed as a positive number and your unassigned is a negative number. So that's why we can't present it in the CAFR or on that page that the manager is referring to.
How much money is in our reserve?
The reserve.
From an accounting standpoint, that's where
I don't understand. There is in our reserve we need 4/5 of the vote in order to spend that money. How much is in that super reserve? How much money? You cannot touch it unless 4 people on the dais vote for it. How much money right now? That's the question.
Again, from an accounting standpoint, that number is negative 4.9.
Out of what? Out of how much?
Out of, what do you mean out of?
Out of 11, out of 50 million, out
Are you
of how
telling
much?
us tonight that
I don't understand.
we have spent
No,
our
no,
reserve?
no,
Okay,
no.
that's what you need to get real
Explain
clear.
me.
We're about to have people come to this microphone on bond questions. You're just throwing hay to the
I'm
wind
not
right
throwing
now.
any hay. I just told you because of the accounting entry that we had to post, we had to reverse revenue that was in the reserve. The net number is approximately $11 million positive. But because we're following accounting standards, I can't tell you a different number. I am legally required to tell you the number that is on this page. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Let me ask you a more simple question. Do we have an account number in a bank somewhere in the United States of America with $11 million in it that we cannot touch unless 4 of us vote for it?
That's the
yes
number.
or no?
Yes.
That's a simple question.
What do you mean?
But
Yes.
Do we?
There's more than that. It's
We have 53 million in the bank. So
Where you?
No.
in
We're
other
talking
words,
about
if-
the.
Yeah, no.
when we're preparing the budget, we do so knowing that we cannot touch the amount that's been appropriated by the council as.
And how
our
much is that
reserve.
amount? That's what we want to find out. Is it 4 million or 11?
I know at one point of time it was $12 million. So now you're saying 11 something. I know
it was
I
only
know it
4.
was 12. Yes, at one point of time.
Can you answer that question?
Okay, so but
How much in
it
the
was 12
reserve?
million. It was 12 million.
And we took from it?
No. We don't.
I thought it's 5
How
million.
much is it? How
It's
much
5
it is?
million.
But you keep saying $11 million. You know it's not.
I'm telling you.
Okay, but we have to move on. We have to.
Yeah.
If you reverse
we
that.
can
If
always.
I reverse the revenue entry, the number is going to be approximately 11 million,
But
10.9.
Okay, if you didn't reverse that, how much will it be?
It's the negative 4.9 million that I've just been telling you.
And that's because we had the accounting
accounting
adjustment we had to
adjustment.
make because of in
That's-
2012 when we got the
Yeah.
cash advance, they just threw it all
They
into
threw it all in the
they
budget,
just threw
yeah.
it all into the general fund as income
Mhm.
when that wasn't correct. They should have recorded it.
Created your reserve in the first place. The one that you're referring to, that you cannot touch, that's what created it.
That's mean we've been talking about $5 million in a reserve plus a $2.9 million unallocated fund, right? All those money was just numbers. That's what you meant?
But it's in the
there.
bank.
It's in the bank. It's there.
The-
The money is in the bank, sir.
Okay.
Let's say I have a check right now for $10 million coming in from a sale. And I want to add that money to the reserve, the super reserve where we did 4/5 of the vote. How much will it be?
How much money you want to add?
10 million.
10 million. Take the 4.9 negative number, add 10 million to it, and the number will be 6 or 5 million.
So, but they said we're doing good.
But in the bank, 10 plus the 63,
Is there.
the 53 would be $63 million.
But Mr. Mayor, the money that came in 2012, we spent that money, and every year we still put it in the budget is that money is going to come. But in reality, the money didn't.
Well,
it's
you,
not
you,
going to
you,
come.
you, you know what? I try to pull it a little bit very simple because they explained it to me in very simple term. It's like, let's say you're an employee and the employer made an error and paid you like $1,000 extra in your check. But you didn't work for that $1,000. And so, okay, I've already paid you the $1,000. Now you have to work for that $1,000. It's in your account. It's your money. But you have to, you have to put out some hours, and then so that that money can be fully, paid. I mean, that's the way that I understand it. The money is there, but you can't truly call it reserve because it should have been allocated, amortized over that lease, which is 99 years, right?
I don't mean
99 years?
Whatever that
yes,
that
it's
term.
90, it was 99 years.
Yeah.
I don't mean
So-
to confuse you, but you guys are mixed. Part of what's happening is you're mixing the appropriation of the annual budget with how we are required to report our financial statements per all of the GASB and the GAP pronouncements. That's
Yeah.
one of the things. I know you're trying to just get to a simple number, and I have to legally tell you the simple number is the number that's on the page. However, I submit to you, we have $53 million in cash in the bank, which all commingled includes what would be our surplus, if you will, the super reserve, as you're referring to it, is there.
Mr. I have a question for the city attorney. Chief. In our code, do we have a section talking about reserve?
Go ahead.
Do we have
He asked
that?
the question.
What's the
He said
question,
code.
sir?
The section in our code.
Section, what the manager gave me, section 2-2, reserve fund account. Yes, sir.
What did he say?
Says the city shall establish and maintain a reserve account in accordance with the government accounting standard board statement, I guess that's GASB, fund balance reporting and government fund type definitions, GASB 54. The initial minimum allocation shall be $5 million from proceeds derived from Biscayne Landing. That's section A. Section B, the amount maintained in a reserve account may be adjusted from time to time by recommendation of the city manager to the mayor and the city council as part of the city's fiscal year budget process. Any adjustments causing a decrease of the initial minimum fund allocation amount set forth in subsection A above shall only be made by ordinance requiring at least a 4/5 affirmative vote of the mayor and city council. The mayor and city council are required to replenish deficits below the minimum allocation amount as soon as is practicable. That's what it's saying.
What did you say about the $5 million? It should be at least what?
The initial minimum allocation shall be $5 million from proceeds derived from the Biscayne Landing lease.
Do we have that?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've added to it over the
Right,
years.
that's-
Yeah, that's
That
what,
was, that was, when we put that $5 million threshold in place is where we jumped from about $500,000 as city reserves up to $5
Yeah,
million.
that's what I've been asking. I want to
that-
make
And I've
sure you
said
did
yes.
not
I've-
use
I've said yes.
the
So-
deficit to,
Right.
did not use that reserve to cover the budget deficit from last year.
all right, we'll have, okay.
Just quickly, we had, so when we started with the new Biscayne Landing lease, we got a $20 million down payment in about 2012, and we took $5 million and put it aside.
Yeah.
There were about 2 other transactions that we did with Solomia, one being, I think, with the residential, but twice we put away maybe 2 million here and a couple million there. I don't remember exactly, but that's the super reserve that you're talking about.
The super reserve is 5 million.
It would
That
be,
5
it would be
million.
nice to be able to go back and see in the past, the 5 million and the other 2 allocations, because I think that money would have only come from Solomia. That every time we got a chunk, we took a little bit of it and put it in that reserve. And that's the number I think that you're looking for.
Okay.
I'm looking at that $5 million
That
because
original
the
five was from the
other
lease. We got 20 million up front, and they took 5 million and put it in the reserve.
yeah.
And we did it a couple more times. We did it up here, but
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, but we never put it on the super reserve.
we
we
did.
always
No, that is.
we spend it,
No, we didn't.
and that's the $2 million he used to balance the budget from last year, the unallocated one.
That's a paper. That's an accounting. That's an accounting.
Okay, we have one last,
Yeah, one last comment, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to know, Mr. Manager, a lot of us up here, well, let me speak for myself. We are not accountant or accounting major, and I think a lot of the folks in the audience are not. And I am a little bit shocked because I don't understand most of the finance because I was told one thing and I came up here with the impression. So I definitely need to sit down and kind of even meet with you guys again to go over these things. Because I'm hearing we okay. And then I'm hearing when you add everything is we negative. All this and all that. I need to know when you compare us and other cities where we are. Are we negative or not? This supermajority that you needed to take funds out, it was very clear. It was 5 million and we could add to it to keep going. But tonight it doesn't seem like you add anything to it because we'll still be negative. So I need you as the money person, which I know, we up here has to be able to understand at least the basic. Because I know you guys are sitting there rolling your eyes and saying, well, it's easy for me to understand. You got to understand something. We got folks in the audience who's going to be calling us, who's watching this from TV. If we don't understand it, I don't know how they could understand it because I came up here with the understanding that we had $5 million in reserve that could not be touched. The city was healthy. We were doing all this and all that. In reality, tonight, it's like, okay, we really not. So if we had $10 million tonight, let's just say a check that came in, and this is my last question, from anywhere, we added to our general fund, and you were balancing this thing, and they were charged to come up with another audit report, would we still be in deficit?
No, you will
That's
not
That's my
be-
question. No
you will
other
not.
things changing? No, we wouldn't.
We would not, or we would,
We would not be.
because we now need how much, about 6 million, or you say 10 million?
You said
No, the
10
10 will
million.
be-
No,
We
I
would
know.
just add
Positive
10 million
of 5
in revenue,
million.
and we would be a positive 5 million
A
on,
five-
on this report.
I got you. So
On
because
this
the
report.
a positive,
No.
no,
positive five.
a positive 5, so so that we get away with this
Yeah.
negative.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We will
A
proceed
quick
now with.
question, Mr. Mayor, to the auditor. Based on that book, are we doing good, or there is great, we should be start thinking or being scared about that based on that 4.9?
To the mayor, part of our role, we are refrained from making editorial comments to that effect because we're not charged with the responsibility of assessing completely if the city is in a healthy. What I can tell you is, obviously, when the word deficit comes up, yes, this is a function of an accounting situation, but obviously the word deficit in any format is never a good thing. So I leave it at that, but we can't provide any commentary if you're good, bad, or indifferent. That's because there are different reasons why, and we don't have all the facts to determine. Our role is to make sure that the numbers are presented, have been audited, and are presented fairly.
Okay. Thank you very much for your answers. And now we ask Ms. Baker or Ms. Timothy to proceed with city events. This is city. This is what that was just a simple presentation.
There's no money report in my event. Good evening, Mayor, Council, North Miami neighbors, and guests. My name is Cassandra Timothy, Public Information Officer, and it is my pleasure to share some of our city's upcoming events and program. The English Cafe Kickoff for learners of English as a second language is Thursday, April 26th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the NOMI Library. Participants will have a chance to practice English language skills in a friendly, relaxed atmosphere through guided casual conversations over a cup of coffee or hot tea. The classes are led by a qualified volunteer instructor and will take place weekly at the same time and same location. North Miami residents are slated to cast ballots for the proposed NOMI General Obligation Bond during a special election on Tuesday, May 1st. Early voting will run from Thursday, April 26th through Sunday, April 29th. Voting will take place from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the North Miami Public Library. Learn more about the NOMI Go Bond at www.nomigobond.com. North Miami residents are also invited to go green in the city of North Miami at the annual Green Awareness Fair and Cleanup on Saturday, April 28th. Volunteers are needed at 3 Earth Day cleanup events, which will take place from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Residents may also join Vice Mayor Carol Keys from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Mocha Plaza for the Green Awareness Fair and Recycling event. This event will include free paper shredding and electronic waste disposal. Reduce stress, control anxiety, and enhance your self-awareness at the North Miami Public Library's newest meditation workshop. The next session is scheduled for Saturday, April 28th from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Learn the most advanced yet most ancient method of inner meditation at the NOMI Library. Learn how to make your money work for you at our next financial fitness workshops on select Wednesdays at the North Miami Library. Participants will learn how to become financially independent and build wealth. North Miami residents will also have an opportunity to receive housing counseling and to learn foreclosure prevention. Learning materials and refreshments will be provided. Join the North Miami Police Department as they remember fallen officers who lost their lives while serving and protecting our North Miami community at the Police Memorial scheduled for Tuesday, May 1st, beginning at 9 a.m. at the North Miami Police Department headquarters. North Miami Mayor Dr. Smith Joseph second quarter business luncheon will take place 12 noon on Thursday, May 2nd at FIU's Coven Center. The keynote address will be delivered by the Honorable Frederica Wilson, Florida's District 24 Congresswoman. She'll be bringing the legislative updates from Washington to Tallahassee.
You sure it's not at JNW?
My notes say Coven Center. So maybe.
Huh?
Sorry.
It's at the Coven Center.
Oh.
All right, make sure that's on your calendar, Mayor. On Thursday, May 3rd at 8 a.m., Councilman Alex DeSome, in collaboration with the Southeastern Conference of Seven-Day Adventists, invites you to an interfaith breakfast honoring National Day of Prayer at the Joe Sellising Center. The North Miami Educational Foundation scholarship applications are now being accepted. The deadline has been extended to May 4th. The foundation awards scholarship to applicants who are North Miami residents who are economically disadvantaged high school graduates. Applications are available online at northmiami.fl.gov/students. The month of May is Haitian Heritage Month, and we have an exciting lineup of events, starting with Mayor Smith Joseph kickoff event on Thursday, May 3rd in the Mocha Plaza. We also have an essay contest for students to take their shot at winning some cash prizes provided by the North Miami Library. You can meet up in the North Miami Plaza again on Friday, May 18th for our Haitian Flag Day celebration. We'll have a key to the city's presentation, a new Hall of Fame induction, a Haitian Jubilee celebration, and also a Haitian Mother's Day celebration, and a screening of the documentary film 1804. You don't want to miss out. Stay up to date with the latest happening in our city by first visiting www.northmiamifl.gov, then clicking the Connect with NOMI tab on our homepage, where you can sign up to receive our free monthly newsletter. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and download the City of North Miami's mobile app. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Timothy. Before we proceed, I'd like to acknowledge in our midst State Representative Mr. Joe Geller. He's here with us tonight. For those of you who may not know him, the next item is actually no, there is no city project, right? No city project update. And the consent agenda is at the point where we need a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Desiree to approve the consent agenda, which is A through D and F, as tab E has been removed, and that motion was seconded by Councilman Galvin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I am told also that Mr. Despinos, our former council person, is in the audience as well, although I can't see him. Mr. Jack Despinos is also here. Thank you very much for your presence. Oh, for former Mayor Andre Pierre. Who else? That's it?
Full house.
Thank you.
Tab G, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving an application for a conditional use permit in substantially the attached form, allocating 62 residential units from the primary pool.
I'm sorry?
I did skip F.
Probably agenda.
Thank you. So tab F, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, urging the Miami-Dade County Commissioners to deny the proposal to extend the SR 836 Kendall Parkway project past the 2020 urban development boundary and expressing concern over the County Department of Regulatory and Economic Resources position as the applicant for this proposal, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Is there any presentation from staff on that item before we give it to the public?
This is Councilman Galvin's item.
Sure. The urban development boundary runs between mainland Dade County and the Everglades. The boundary was put in place by the county commission many years ago as a way to stop encroachment of construction and development in toward the Everglades. Obviously, very needed protected environmental resource. There is talk by the county right now of building a new highway called the Kendall Parkway through the Everglades to provide outlet for traffic from the Kendall area, even further south. And I think it was Tropical Audubon Society asked cities if they would be interested in passing a resolution against doing that. So I sponsored that tonight to ask the council's opinion. Obviously, it doesn't have anything to do with our city, but it does have to do with the environment. And from my standpoint, building a new highway through the Everglades is not a positive thing. So that's why I brought this forward this evening.
All right. The item F, Evan Frank, is now open to the public for comments, questions, or concerns. I see no one, hearing one, none. Public hearing is now closed.
So moved for approval.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Desiree to approve tab F. That motion was seconded by Councilman Galvin.
Before Mr. Clerk, can I please add my name as a co-sponsor to the legislation, Councilman Galvin?
Certainly.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Give me 1 second. I have the wrong
agenda.
I want to steal your staff sign. I had the wrong one.
I did that.
All right, so we are on tab G. All right, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving an application for a conditional use permit in substantially the attached form, allocating 62 residential units from the primary pool of 2,500 of floating residential units reserved for the neighborhood redevelopment overlay district for a proposed 6-story, 67 multifamily residential development on the 1.1 acre real property generally located at 840 Northeast 130th Street and specifically identified with Miami-Dade County folio number 06-2230-013-0110 in accordance with Article 4, Division 4, Section 4-205B and Section 4-305, and Article 3, Division 4, Sections 3-402 through 3-407 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, Chapter 29, entitled Land Development Regulations, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. If we remember very clearly, last time we debated this item, it was presented to the public. We had a public hearing. We had, because of its nature of being a quasi-judicial item, we had some detailed, I guess, interrogation.